I don't get why some grown men feel the need to prove themselves to kids. Like, you're 40, built like a filing cabinet, and teaching martial arts to teenagers. Do you really need to slap a 12-year-old to feel powerful? Because that's what happened at the downtown MMA gym last Saturday. And that's the story of how a mouthy coach thought he was shutting down some disrespectful little punk, until Jason Statham walked through the front door. But first, let me tell you how it started. It started with a boy named Zach, small, slender, hair flopped over his eyes. Looked like the type who still apologized to pigeons when he walked too close. He showed up at Titan MMA Academy for a free trial class, part of a citywide promo for first-timers. I was the floor manager that day, clipboard in hand, doing what I always do. Checking names, making sure no one passed out from dehydration, and keeping an eye on Coach Darren. Coach Darren Tate was ex-military, ex-MMA circuit, and very much not ex-ego. His style wasn't about building confidence, it was about dominance. He liked loud voices, hard hits, kids flinching. Some parents loved him because he didn't coddle. Others kept their distance but didn't want to argue with the man who made their kids tough. Zach didn't look tough. He looked like he'd shown up by accident. He stood at the edge of the mat in a borrowed rash guard and oversized shin guards, trying to copy what the other kids were doing without getting in the way. I was walking toward him with a water bottle when Darren's voice cut through the gym like a snapped belt. "You flippy hair, you listening or not?" Zach froze. "Yes, sir." "Yes, what, sir?" "Yes, coach." Darren smirked and walked over. "You trained before." Zach shook his head. Then added, "Only at home. My dad." Darren cut him off. "Your dad?" Zach nodded. "Yeah, he's a black belt. He taught me some basics." That was it. That one sentence, completely innocent, no attitude, no bragging, and it was like Darren's pride got set on fire. "Oh, your dad's a black belt?" Zach blinked, realizing too late that he'd triggered something. Darren laughed once, a sharp, ugly bark. "All right then. Let's see what Mr. Black Belt passed down." He clapped his hands. "Everyone pair up. Except you, Zach." Zach glanced around. The other kids were already moving into light sparring drills. He stood still. "Come here," Darren said. Zach stepped forward hesitantly. I opened my mouth to say something to call this off, but another parent tapped my shoulder asking for a waiver form, and I looked away for half a second. When I turned back, the slap echoed, not a gentle tap, not a teaching moment, a full-on, open-palm slap across Zach's left cheek, enough to snap his head sideways and drop him to one knee. Silence, the kind of silence that freezes sound itself. Even the punching bags in the far corner seemed to stop swinging. Zach didn't cry. He just held his cheek, eyes wide, breathing hard through his nose. "First rule," Darren said, voice low and loud at the same time, "don't bring up your daddy in my gym unless he's here to spar." And that's when a voice, cool, controlled, and unmistakably British, spoke from behind the front desk. "He is, actually." I turned. Jason Statham stepped through the front door. No one moved. Some kids recognized him instantly. Their jaws literally dropped. Others squinted, confused, like they knew the face but couldn't place it. But Darren, he knew. I saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes. And I saw the other thing, too. The stupid, chest-puffing instinct of a man who thinks being embarrassed is worse than being wrong. Jason walked calmly toward the mat. No entourage, no swagger. Just a man in plain black joggers and a gray zip hoodie. Darren crossed his arms. "You lost, mate." Jason gave a tight smile. "No, but you might be." He looked at Zach, who was still kneeling. "You all right, kid?" Zach nodded, eyes glassy but locked in. Jason crouched beside him. "Your name?" "Zach." Jason nodded once, then stood and turned to Darren. "You hit a child." He ran his mouth. "He said his dad's a black belt." Darren snorted. "Yeah, you gonna call his dad and have a word?" Jason raised an eyebrow. "I am his dad." The gasp in the room wasn't from the kids, it was from me, and two other instructors. Even Darren froze. "You're joking." Jason didn't blink. "No." He looked back at Zach, then slowly pulled off his hoodie. Underneath was a plain compression tee. Old scars, strong arms, the body of a man who'd trained more than he'd performed. Then he said, loud enough for the whole gym to hear, "You put your hand on my son. Let's talk about that." The front desk manager scrambled to close the doors. A few parents pulled out phones. Not to record, but to call someone. I didn't move, I just stared. Because you could feel it, that stillness before impact. Not a fight, not a movie moment, something real. Darren's face twitched. "You trying to challenge me in my gym?" Jason tilted his head. "Just offering you the same courtesy you gave him. A free demo." Darren's hands clenched. He stepped onto the mat. "Fine, you want to roll, we'll roll." Jason waved a hand. "No sparring, just stand there." Darren stepped forward. Jason didn't. He simply walked past him toward Zach. Helped him to his feet, then turned to the kids. "You lot, what did you see?" Silence. One brave girl, maybe 13, raised her hand. He hit him. Hard. Jason nodded. "And what would your coach say to that?" "Respect. No ego." Jason smiled. "Sounds like a better gym than this one." Darren stepped in again. "This is my facility, you don't get to." Jason turned. And it was the look, not a shout, not a posture, just the way he stood, square and steady, that made Darren pause. "You're not a coach," Jason said flatly. "You're a coward who hides behind authority." Darren growled, "Try me." Jason took a slow breath, then stepped forward, just close enough, and said, "You're not worth the lawsuit." Then he turned to me. "Can I speak to management?" I nodded, still stunned. And just like that, he put his arm around Zach and walked toward the office. Darren didn't follow. He didn't say another word. Because deep down, even he knew this was already over. The office at Titan MMA wasn't much more than a converted supply closet with a desk, 2 folding chairs, and a dry erase board still marked with last month's sparring schedule. Jason stood tall beside Zach, hand still resting on his shoulder like a guard dog that hadn't decided whether to bite. I opened the door and waved them in. The gym's co-owner, Melissa, was already inside, headset around her neck, typing something before she glanced up and froze. "Jason Statham." "Yep," she blinked. You're here because—" Jason nodded toward Zach. "My son." Melissa stood immediately, mouth parting. He said his dad was a black belt, but no one believed." Jason cut her off, calm but sharp. "That's not the problem." She shut the laptop. "You're right. Sit down." They didn't. Jason looked at her evenly. "Darren hit him. I heard. In front of 24 students." She nodded, already pale. "I'm going to be honest," she said. "That's not the first complaint." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Then why's he still here?" She looked down. "And that said everything." I stepped in. "He's half the reason parents sign up here. Train with a real fighter, that's the pitch, right?" Melissa sighed. "And now that pitch has a lawsuit standing next to it," Jason said flatly. Zach looked up at him, not scared, just watching. Like he was learning in real time how men are supposed to handle things, not fists, standards. Melissa cleared her throat. "What would you like us to do?" Jason didn't flinch. "Fire him." Back in the gym, Darren was pacing near the front desk, arms folded so tightly his biceps looked like they might tear through his sleeves. Some of the kids were still finishing up drills with the assistant coaches, clearly rattled, but trying to keep the energy from falling off a cliff. 3 parents were huddled in the lobby. One was already on the phone. "She's calling Channel 5. I heard someone whisper. I stepped back into the gym. Darren saw me, stormed over. "You just let him take over like that?" I didn't answer. "Guy walks in here with some Hollywood swagger, makes up a story about the kid being his. He is his," I said. Darren's face twitched. "He's lying." "He's not. We just looked it up. School records match. Medical info. Zach's last name is his mom's. She's married to Jason Statham." Darren opened his mouth, closed it. Then, too quiet, he said, "So what?" I took a step closer. "So you slapped a celebrity's kid in front of witnesses." His mouth went tight. "You think that's what this is about?" he snapped. "Publicity? You think I'm scared of that?" "No," I said. You should be scared because you hit a child, period. He stared. I didn't blink. He shook his head, scoffing, backing away. You've always wanted this, a chance to replace me. I wanted you to stop taking out your ego on 12-year-olds. You jealous I made this place? You didn't make anything. You barked orders in a gym someone else built. He stepped forward. I didn't move, but someone else did. Jason was back. Zach walked beside him, now holding a water bottle someone had handed him. Jason didn't speak right away. He just looked at Darren. The whole gym watched. Even the kids stopped. Then Jason spoke. One last question. Darren smirked. What, you want to spar now? Jason's voice didn't rise. Why'd you hit him? Disrespect. He said his dad was a black belt. Exactly. Jason tilted his head. So you were threatened? By a sentence. No, I was establishing. You were afraid someone might be better than you. I wasn't, you were. Jason stepped forward. And worse, you picked a target who couldn't hit back. Darren tried to hold his ground, but something was gone in his posture, confidence. Control. That thing bullies cling to when their voice is the only loud one in the room. Now, he was surrounded by silence, by eyes, by witnesses. Jason kept going. You don't belong around students. You don't belong in martial arts. Because this, he pointed at Darren's chest, this is not discipline. This is fear dressed in gym clothes. Darren didn't reply, just turned and walked out, fast, no bag, no goodbye, just the slam of the front door behind him. Melissa posted the statement that night. Coach Darren Tate has been permanently removed from Titan MMA Academy, effective immediately. We deeply regret the incident that occurred today and are taking steps to ensure it never happens again. Our space should be one of safety, not intimidation. They didn't mention Jason's name. Didn't need to, word got around. But what mattered wasn't the headlines. It was what happened after. Zach came back the next day. He didn't say much, didn't want special treatment, didn't bring his dad. Just walked in with a borrowed rash guard, tied his belt, yellow, freshly earned, and took a spot in the second row. Melissa called me aside during warm-ups. You think we should offer him something, free lessons? I shook my head. He doesn't want a reward. What does he want? To not feel like a problem. She nodded slowly, then turned and walked to the instructor's circle, pulled one aside, whispered something. And next thing I knew, Zach was called up to help demonstrate a basic block. He looked surprised, then did it smooth, sharp, exactly right. The whole class clapped, and for the first time since he stepped into that gym, Zach smiled. Not the kind that says, I'm proud, the kind that says, I'm safe. After class, I caught Jason in the parking lot. He was leaning against a black SUV, arms folded, watching Zach bounce his water bottle on the curb. He likes it now, Jason said, eyes still on his son. He's good, I said. Jason nodded once. Won't push him, just wants him to enjoy it. I paused. You didn't tell him to say you were a black belt, did you? Jason smiled faintly. Nope, kid's just honest. Bet you didn't expect today to turn into all this. I didn't expect a grown man to strike my son, he said, suddenly serious. But I'm glad it happened here where people stood up. He looked at me then. You stood up. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, he made it easy. Jason nodded once more, then called out, Zach, come on. The boy jogged over. Say goodbye, Jason said. Zach turned to me. Thanks for not letting him get away with it. You didn't either, I said. He smiled. Then climbed into the SUV. Jason lingered for a moment, hand on the door. You ever need someone to help run a better gym? He said. I know people. Then he got in and drove off, no fanfare, just gone. Back inside, Melissa was already talking to the assistant coaches, planning, shifting, cleaning out Darren's locker. Zach's name went on the roster, not as a novelty, as a student. And somewhere between all that chaos and cleanup, the energy in the room shifted. Not because someone famous showed up, but because someone right finally did. The gym didn't go back to normal after Darren left. How could it? You don't just unhear a slap, or unsee a 12-year-old take it without flinching. That kind of thing hangs in the air, sticks to the walls like chalk dust. So when Coach Nina gathered the parents after class, no one left early. They stood in a semicircle near the front desk, arms crossed, faces unreadable. The kind of serious only parents get when they're deciding if a place still deserves their kids. Melissa stepped up beside her, clipboard in hand but not hiding behind it. First, she said, what happened today shouldn't have, period. She let that sit. A few parents nodded. One looked toward the mat where Zach was now sitting with two boys his age trading snacks like nothing had happened. Melissa continued. We fired Coach Darren. No second chances. No behind-the-scenes warnings. Gone. Silence. She glanced around. This place exists to build your kids, not break them. We lost sight of that, and we're fixing it starting now. Coach Nina stepped in. We're changing how sparring oversight works. No coach runs a match without an assistant watching. We're retraining staff on de-escalation, and every student will have an anonymous way to report anything off, even if it's a coach doing it. Now, some parents started murmuring to each other, not angry, relieved. Melissa spoke again. And finally, to the family directly affected, Zach and his father, we've offered them full tuition for life, no strings, no spotlight. One mother raised her hand. Will he be okay? Everyone looked at her, she clarified. I mean, is Zach okay? Melissa glanced over. Zach was now showing the other boys how to properly tape your fingers before grappling. I think, she said softly, he's going to be better than okay. In the locker room, Zach was sitting alone on the bench near the exit, untying his belt. I walked in with a towel and handed it over. Good class, he nodded. You all right? He shrugged. Then, barely above a whisper, everyone keeps asking that. I sat beside him. You want them to stop? He shrugged again, then looked up. I didn't mean to make a thing. You didn't. But it's like, now I'm the kid who got hit. You're the kid who stood back up. That got a tiny sideways look, just the start of a smirk. You know, I added, most people would have left. You didn't. I didn't want to quit. Why? He paused, looked down, then said, because my dad would have told me I didn't have to. Not shouldn't, didn't have to, that difference. That was everything out front. A few parents stuck around to talk with Coach Nina. I overheard one ask, how long have you known that was Jason Statham? She laughed. About halfway through the sentence, let's talk about that. Is he coming back? She hesitated. Not unless he wants to. But you'd let him teach? In a heartbeat. Another parent asked, think he'd want to? Coach Nina glanced toward the door, then said, I don't think he needs to. That evening, Melissa sent out a group message to every member of the gym. Subject: a culture of courage today reminded us that being strong means more than throwing a punch. It means standing for others, speaking up, making things right. We thank every student and parent who held us accountable, and we promise to earn your trust again. We are not who we were yesterday, and that's a good thing. The next day, the front desk was a little busier than usual, not because people were quitting, because new people were signing up. A mom with two daughters handed me a waiver and said, heard you handled a situation. That matters more to me than medals. A dad signed up his son and asked, is that kid still training here? Zach, I nodded. The dad said, good, my son wants to meet him. By noon, the intro class had 10 new names, and the weirdest part, no one mentioned Jason. They talked about Zach, what he endured, how he stood still, why he stayed. He wasn't a side note anymore. He was the reason things got better. That afternoon, a slim envelope arrived at the front desk. No return address. Inside was a folded note, handwritten. Respect isn't earned by beating the weak. It's built by lifting them. J.S. Underneath was a simple black patch. No logo, no brand, just a stitched symbol of two open hands cupped together. Melissa pinned it to the new staff board under the title Honor Code. By midweek, we made an announcement. Zach would lead the next beginner demo. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a pity move. It was because he knew what it was like to be the new kid with too big gloves and too small confidence. When we told him, he didn't react right away. Then he said, I'll do it if someone stands next to me, Coach Nina said. I will. He nodded, didn't smile. Didn't need to. The demo class was packed. Parents stood near the back wall, watching their kids get shown how to pivot, strike, and block by a boy barely taller than most of them. Zach didn't speak much, but he showed everything. Clean, calm, controlled. The parents clapped. The kids copied him. And for the first time, the gym felt like it wasn't about a coach or a brand or a belt. It was about trust. And that had a name now. Zach. It was Thursday afternoon, 2 hours before the gym opened, when the knock came at the back door. The one we don't use unless we're loading equipment. I was setting up for the after-school class, taping off the mat edges when I heard it. Sharp, measured, 3 knocks. I walked over and unlocked it. Didn't recognize the man at first. Lean build. Crew cut. Clean polo shirt tucked into jeans. The kind of guy who could disappear into any hardware store and never get noticed. He stuck out his hand. I'm Charlie Tate, Darren's brother. I didn't shake it. He let the hand fall. Can I talk to someone in charge? I didn't move. He looked me square in the face and said, I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to understand. Melissa was already in the office. She agreed to meet with him, but only in the front area, public, glass windows, witnesses, smart. I stood near the edge of the mat where I could hear everything. Charlie sat forward, arms on his knees. I heard what happened. Melissa said nothing. I didn't believe it at first. Darren's always been intense, but I thought he kept that out of the gym. He didn't, Melissa said simply. Charlie nodded slowly. I just needed to see it for myself. The place, the people. Melissa tilted her head. Why? Because Darren's not talking. He walked away from everything, apartment job, even his car, left town, didn't tell anyone. She frowned. He quit. Yeah. Went to stay with our cousin in Nevada. I only found out because he mailed me his house keys with a sticky note that said, I messed up. He looked up. Whatever he did, I'm not asking you to forgive it. I just want to understand how far it went. Melissa paused. Then nodded toward the main floor. You're welcome to watch class. That's where you'll see the consequences. Zach walked in 30 minutes later. I met him at the door, handed him a clean towel. Ready for today? He shrugged. He always shrugged, but his eyes were clearer than usual. I pointed toward the edge of the gym. Guy sitting near the desk, that's Darren's brother. Zach didn't flinch, didn't ask why, just said, okay, and kept walking. I'd expected a flicker of fear, but there wasn't any. Zach was beyond that now. The warm-up began with Coach Nina calling Zach to lead the line. 10 new students stood shoulder to shoulder, glancing nervously at their parents through the glass. Zach faced them, hands loose at his sides. Follow my pace, he said. Not too fast, just right. They nodded. He led them through shoulder rolls, light hops, hip turns, proper foot spacing, never raised his voice, but never lost the room. Charlie watched silently, hands folded. Expression unreadable. Midway through the class, a girl in the back tripped during a drill and sat down hard, eyes wide. Lips wobbling. Zach jogged over before Nina could. He knelt beside her. You okay? She shook her head. I think I did it wrong. You're supposed to, he said. She blinked. You're learning, that's part of it. She stared at him, then gave a tiny nod. Zach helped her up, dusted her off. Want to try again? She did, and nailed it. After class, Zach was wiping down the mats when Charlie approached him, slow, careful. Hey, he said gently. You're Zach, right? Zach turned. Yeah. Charlie glanced at me, then back at him. I'm Darren's brother. Zach didn't speak. Charlie swallowed hard. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not on his behalf, I don't get to do that. Just sorry that happened to you. Zach nodded. I'm glad you're still here, Charlie added. Zach looked at him a long moment. Then asked, why do you care? Charlie didn't expect the question. He took a breath. Because he's my brother, and I've spent a long time making excuses for him, but that stops when someone gets hurt. Zach nodded again, then turned back to the mat, wiped down the last section in silence. That night, Melissa pulled Zach aside as he was packing up. We're putting together a small student panel next week, just a few kids talking about their experience. Would you be willing to speak? Zach froze. Like on stage, just in the gym, in front of some parents, no pressure. He hesitated, then quietly, "Can I think about it?" "Of course," she smiled, "but I think you have something worth saying." When Jason called later that night, Zach answered on speakerphone. "Hey," came the familiar voice, warm with just a trace of accent. "How was class?" Zach paused. Then said, "I led the warm-up." Jason whistled. "Look at you, Mr. Instructor," Zach smiled. "Someone cried and I helped." "Sounds like you're doing the real work." Zach hesitated. Darren's brother showed up. Long pause. "He do anything?" "No, just watched, said sorry." Jason didn't speak for a few seconds, then said, "How'd it feel? Like closure?" "Yeah," Zach nodded, forgetting he was on the phone. "I'm proud of you," Jason said. Zach didn't reply, but the silence said everything. The next morning, Charlie left an envelope at the front desk before leaving town. Inside was a check, $5,000, and a note. "For new gloves, new gear, new memories. I can't undo what was done, but I want to help rebuild what comes next." Melissa added the funds to the community scholarship pool, didn't announce it, didn't make a speech, just quietly made it available to any family who needed a hand. Zach was the first to offer a private lesson to one of the new kids. Didn't charge. Didn't even tell anyone. I only found out because the boy's mom posted about it on Facebook later that week, and all she wrote was, "He came home today and said, 'Zach taught me how to be brave.'" The student panel wasn't flashy, no cameras, no stage lights. Just a row of folding chairs lined up in front of the matted gym floor, with a cluster of parents seated on one side and about 30 students seated cross-legged on the other. Melissa stood at the front, clipboard in hand. "Tonight's just about voices," she said. "No rankings, no belts, just stories." The plan was for each speaker to share for 2 minutes what brought them here, what kept them here, that's it. The only twist, Zach agreed to go last. He hadn't told anyone except Nina and Melissa, said it quietly the day before. "I'll do it. But not because I have something dramatic to say, just because I think maybe someone like me needs to hear it." Jason walked in just as the first speaker, a tall, shy girl in a green belt, was finishing her story about building confidence after moving schools. He didn't sit in the front. He stood near the back wall, baseball cap pulled low, hands in his jacket pockets. Zach didn't see him, didn't need to. The fourth speaker was a boy who once had panic attacks just standing near other kids. Now he was in the intermediate class, helping lead drills. Then Coach Nina gave a slight nod and Melissa called, "Zach Navarro." He stood slowly, walked up without fidgeting, faced the group. No mic, no podium, just a 12-year-old standing in front of people who had seen him at his absolute lowest. He took a breath and spoke. "I didn't want to come here at first." Pause. "I thought it was going to be a place where people barked orders and you just took it." A few nervous chuckles. "Then I met someone who made that true, and I almost didn't come back. No names, no blame, just the facts. But someone stood up. And after that, a lot of people stood up, and that changed everything." He looked at the students, then at the parents. "I used to think being strong meant being the loudest, or the fastest, or the one who wins all the time." He shook his head. "But I think it just means showing up again. Even when you're scared, even when you think you're the weakest one here." He glanced over at Coach Nina, who gave the smallest smile. "I'm not scared anymore." And that was it. No applause cue, but the room clapped anyway. Not polite, not dramatic, just real. And in the back, Jason closed his eyes, just for a second, and exhaled like something had been carried to the finish line without him. After the event, Zach came off the mat and immediately got pulled into a conversation with a younger student and her mom. The girl said, "You made me not scared to come." Zach blinked, caught off guard, then quietly said, "Thanks." A few feet away, Jason stood beside me. "You didn't tell him you were coming," I said. "Nope." "Why not?" Didn't want to change the way he walked up there. I glanced over at Zach, who was now helping the girl tie her belt properly. "You think he's different now?" Jason smiled, the real kind, rare and quiet. He's not different. He's himself, but unafraid. Later that night, as people started filing out and the gym began to empty, Jason finally walked over to his son. Zach turned. Eyes went wide. "You were here. Wouldn't miss it." Zach's face went red, but he grinned. "Did I talk weird? You talk true." They stood in silence for a second. Then Jason asked, "You still want to train?" Zach didn't even hesitate. "More than ever." Jason nodded. "I signed you up at a place near the house." Zach tilted his head. "What about here?" "Here's where you lead now," Jason said. "But I want you to train where you're the new guy again." Zach thought about it, then nodded. "Okay." Jason clapped a hand on his shoulder. "And maybe you can teach me a thing or two." Zach raised an eyebrow. "You don't know everything," Jason smirked. "I'm a black belt in pretending." Before leaving, Zach walked up to Melissa. "Can I keep helping with the beginners?" She smiled. "You sure you want the responsibility?" He nodded. "I think someone helped me when I needed it. I should do the same." She handed him a lanyard with a laminated card that read, "Assistant Student Coach." His eyes went wide. Then he smiled, not proud. "Ready." Jason and Zach left together that night, walking out into the cool air, side by side. No headlines, no photos. Just a father and son who had already done the hard thing, not fighting back with fists, but with character. And now, they were moving forward, together.